We just got done checking out the Afeela, which is the joint venture between Honda and Sony, as you've probably heard at this point. I've got a lot of thoughts about it based on just the specs, but having had the opportunity to actually sit in the car and discuss some of the features of this vehicle and how they plan to implement all this, I think it's a good time now to kind of talk about all those things. So as you can see behind me, we have two of these, and they're in two different colors. Now, the base model only comes in black, and it starts at $89,000. It's a steep price. Now, you can maybe get away with that if you have the right features, and I think that's where we're going to start to fall apart here. But that said, there is some really cool tech in here, so it's not all doom and gloom. It's not all bad news here. There's actually some really cool stuff inside of the vehicle. It's super comfortable. The materials inside are what you would expect from a high price point. And as far as size goes, it is not quite Model S in size, more like a Model 3 Plus. So a little bit longer on the inside is at least the impression that you get, or the feel you get sitting inside of this thing. And looking on the outside, that's where you can see the biggest thing that's different from this vehicle and what we're used to. So one of the many party tricks of this car is, of course, this little screen right here. And this is customizable, so you can personalize it, whether it's putting in a Fortnite logo or happy birthday, whatever, like she showed us today. It was kind of cool that you can do that. Again, it's a party trick. It doesn't add value to the vehicle itself, but something cool. But what's more important about the front here is you can start to see the number of cameras that we have on board. So starting right down here, you can see, I think that's one of 21 cameras on board. So we also have LiDAR, of course, which you can see up here, and you're probably looking at this thing saying, man, this looks so familiar, and you wouldn't be wrong. I mean, essentially, at least in my opinion, this is the same car they've been bringing for 3 years at CES. So there are some changes though, and they have updated kind of the configuration of these cameras and the LiDAR itself in a more visible place. And that's how a lot of manufacturers are going to go with using LiDAR, is putting it right up top, because they've been able to kind of pack them into a much smaller platform. Now, the thing is, although a lot of people like to say LiDAR has become affordable, I don't disagree. Why is the price so high if that's the case? And I think that's going to be a big challenge here. So the advanced driver system on board does have a whole host of sensors and radars and cameras everywhere. There's even more cameras on the inside of this thing than most EVs today. In addition to all these advanced driver systems, on the inside it's packed with other tech that you're probably going to like in a car like this, including a panoramic screen that goes all the way from driver's side to passenger side, which is really cool. And during the demo, they showed us how you can move some of these widgets around, which is great. Of course, like previously, being a Sony vehicle, it has PlayStation on board, which is fun. And the back seats actually have a couple of screens. Now, you have to step up to the Signature Series to get that stuff, or to get anything but black. But that jumps it from $90,000 roughly to $102,000. And now we're talking a well-trimmed out Lucid Air, and that's gonna be a big problem. Here's why. For the Lucid Air, we're talking 400 plus miles of range. This thing, 300. We're also talking 300 plus kilowatt charge rate on the Lucid. This, 150 kilowatt. And that's a big issue, and that's why this vehicle coming here 3 years ago, not much has changed on the important stuff for the tech. Yes, they've enhanced the computers on board. Yes, they've added more sophisticated software and hardware around the assisted driver suite. But if this thing charges at the very low end of what's acceptable and charges at the high end in money, that's a big gap. Plus, at this price point, 300 miles is minimum acceptable at this point. So most of these vehicles are 350 to 400 miles. Once we're getting into this 90-ish range, which is, again, another big problem. Now, on the plus side, we do have some other benefits. First and foremost, this vehicle is planned to be manufactured in Ohio, which is great. So this will be a US manufactured vehicle. I don't have specifics on the battery itself as it relates to tax credit qualification, but at $90,000, it's too expensive anyway. So it'll be that same loophole. If they offer a lease, that's how you'll get the tax credit. Next is they're planning to offer this starting just in California for customers there. That's expected to happen starting next year. So even another year later, 150 kilowatt charge rate peak, which we don't know what that curve looks like, 300 miles of estimated range. So there's a lot of things kind of in the way. When you look around the inside, there are some thoughtful features here. They did, it appears, use some more environmentally friendly materials, but they didn't skimp on quality. So even though there's some other textiles in there, it doesn't make it feel like a cheap interior, which is nice. You have all these screens. If you get the Signature Series, you have seating for up to 5. I wouldn't probably feel real comfortable in the back seat with 3 people, but the front seats were very comfortable. Back seats, the left and right, are absolutely acceptably comfortable. But that's kind of it. They went with a very minimalistic kind of design cue for all of the buttons on the inside, like Tesla, which I think is a good idea, and having everything integrated in the software. At the end of the day, I think the biggest thing that you're going to notice, it's expensive, it charges slow, it barely has enough range, and the amount of hardware on this thing for the driver assistance system is insane, and that only gets you level 2 plus for autonomy. So you're still going to have to pay attention, you're still going to have to touch the wheel, and all these other things like the screens in there that most manufacturers are eventually going to let the driver watch to are limited to only the passengers, of course. So I'm a little bit concerned about where this thing falls in the market, how this thing is a success, which is too bad because 3 years ago when this car came out, this was different, this was exciting. And since then, not much has been done to make this thing any better. 240 horsepower versus 600 plus in the competition. I think it falls short in a lot of areas. That said, I wish nothing but success for this vehicle because the more options we have, the better options we'll get tomorrow. So that's it for this video. I thank you for tuning in. Catch you next time.